Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's lovely to have you and to be joining you, in this session, Quarterly Knowledge Exchange on Climate Cafés. My name is Kaylee, and I'm a project lead with the Mental Health and Climate Change Alliance. I'm calling in today from the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. And to start us off, I'd actually love to. I know we're joining virtually in this digital space together, but I know all of us are also in um, spaces connected to lands and communities and places where we are. So I'd love to take a moment to start off, perhaps by just noticing where you are, maybe even grounding, taking a moment to ground your feet on the earth, and perhaps take a moment to reflect on the lands where you are calling in from, their histories, your relationship with it. I know, as I mentioned, I'm calling in from unceded lands, meaning that there is never any treaty or agreement or surrendering of these lands by the nations who have been here since time immemorial, stewarding these lands, and the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And I just really want to invite in reflection on the interconnection um, of land and decolonization and the relationships directly with mental health and climate change and well-being, as Indigenous peoples have been and are longstanding leaders on climate justice and this intersection, as well as recognizing the impacts of colonialism on well-being and climate change as well. So just inviting some maybe reflection on where you are, and if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat or share where you're calling in from, we welcome that. Welcoming interaction in the chat today. Um, and yeah, with that grounding, I'd also like to introduce the Mental Health and Climate Change Alliance. We're an organization dedicated to identifying and addressing the adverse impacts of climate change on mental health and really working at this intersection that directly relates back to this conversation discussion today. And throughout the year, we host various knowledge exchanges roughly quarterly. And if you're interested in attending others, the best way to stay up to date on those events is through our newsletter. But today, we're really thrilled to welcome the Wellness Impact Lab team and Dr. Harvey Skinner, Susan Harris, Sophia Bryan-Carbonell, and Nebiyou, Timotewos, who are all bringing an incredible wealth of experiences and insights as researchers, facilitators, community leaders, all working at the intersection of climate change and well-being. And I'm so excited to welcome them to this knowledge exchange. Thank you all so, so much for joining us. Really, really excited to have you here to share a workshop on looking into the fire dialogue to action via climate cafes. And I'll pass it to their team now to share a more full introduction. So thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Kaylee. I'm Harvey Skinner. So our team, we're coming from unceded land. It's now called Takaranto or Toronto, but we also represent many other nations. I'm a professor emeritus in psychology and global health at York, but my real passion is co-leading our Wellness Impact Lab. And I'll turn it over to my co-lead, Susan, to introduce herself.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Susan Harris, co-lead of the Wellness Impact Lab, and I'll turn it over to Sophia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia Bryan-Carbonell. I am a fourth-year psychology student at York University, and I am a lab coordinator at the Wellness Impact Lab. And I'll pass it over to Neb.
Hello, everybody. My name is Timotewos. I am in my fourth year at York, and I'm an intern with the Wellness Impact Lab, and I'm looking forward to the meaningful conversation that we're going to have here. And I'll pass it back to Harvey.
Okay. So I'm going to share screen and we'll get our presentation started. Everybody can see this okay? Yep. Great. Looking into the fire. Well, the climate crisis is hot and too many of us are facing it alone. What if we stopped turning away and looked into this fire? Through climate cafes, we've seen worry and indifference turn into connection, leadership, and action. So today, let's explore how we can move forward together. With all our meetings, our lab, as part of healing ourselves, we always begin with a grounding, and then we'll end with a short balancing at the end of the session. So I'll turn it over to my co-lead, Susan.
Thank you, Harvey. One of the biggest obstacles we have to moving forward to be able to address climate change is the delusion that much of we have in the West about our separateness from the web of life. This is one of the great learnings that we have from indigenous wisdom and many Eastern wisdoms as well, but it's this delusion of separateness that supports our turning away from what is happening to our world. And it's the experience of our interconnection that supports our turning toward. So let the invitation of our short grounding practice today be one of turning toward and connecting with the amazing web of life around us that we call Earth, to sense into the resource we need to engage in this with this dialogue. So find a way that your body can be at ease where you are. And as you settle, invite the body to relax and soften as best you can, letting go of any obvious tension. And letting your attention drop down into the body, this body in contact with the earth. Let your eyes close gently or lower your gaze and feel the weight of your body being met by the earth so that you can rest on her. Sensing into the presence of earth, her stability, strength, and feel into how earth holds you with the embrace of gravity. Holding you in place, providing steady ground. Come into the reality of the present, just here and now. Noticing body breathing. As best you can, relax and settle into the breath. This breath that breathes with the squirrels and the birds, with the plants and the trees. And with all human beings. The earth is breathing you and all of life. And you can sense this. Know that you belong in this natural process of give and take, this circle of life. There is no separation. You are linked with every breath. Resting for a moment in spacious open-heartedness, and breathing with earth and the rest of life. And sensing into the resource that is deep connection. Knowing that you draw on the unconditional and compassionate way Earth sustains you and all of life. So as you're ready, gently open eyes or raise your gaze. Move, stretch the body, whatever way feels right. As you return to our Zoom session, rested and ready to engage in the session today.
Thank you, Susan. Oops. I'm having trouble getting my PowerPoint to advance. Rats. Maybe I'll try opening it again. Okay. Catherine Hayhoe is Canadian-born academic and activist, and I'm sure many of you will have read her book. It's an incredible book, Saving Us. And the essence of the book is the most important thing every one of us can do about climate change is to talk about it, to use our voices to advocate change. So how do we get people to talk about change?
We can't see the PowerPoint.
You can't?
No.
Sorry. I wondered, Kaylee, whether you might fire yours up. I'm
Sure,
sorry.
yeah, just give me a minute here. I'll just get that up and running.
I had this problem before. I'm sorry.
Okay. Um, oops. Mm-mm. Okay. Are you able to see that there?
Yeah, if you make it full screen.
Yeah, are you seeing everything you can see right now?
Um, I just see it. It's partially there. It's not the full. I see your background. It's about a quarter of the. But I can see.
Okay, one sec. Just having my computer's doing something funny a little. Okay.
while we're waiting, so I showed a slide. Our inspiration comes from saving us. So how do we get people to talk about it? So this is where we've taken on looking at climate cafes as one of the major sort of approaches. And so we've been delivering cafes, but also because we're academics, we build in ongoing evaluations. So we're evaluating it. And our presentation, I think, will tell the story of how we began showing with some initial cafes and then how we've broadened out to more specific and diverse approaches. So let's see. Okay, next slide. So this shows some images of our Wellness Impact Lab, which we call WILL. And as you can see, we're very diverse. And in fact, the Greater Toronto area is the most diverse community in the world. So around us, we really are a mini world. And you see our lab is out there. We're leading groups. We're out there. It's very much engaging in the community and very action focused. Next. Our vision is healing ourselves, healing others, healing the world. And the essence is that we can't really help others and we can't heal the planet if we don't have our own ongoing personal wellness practice to build resiliency and to foster our own wellness and to avoid burnout. So a distinguishing element of what we do is healing ourselves in addition to working with communities. This is why we open and close all of our meetings with grounding and balancing sessions. Next slide. So at the center, you'll see the Wellness Impact Lab. We began over 3 years ago. We're now over, I guess, 25, 26 members. And we're leading activities like climate cafes, and we're researching them. And we're also doing a range of knowledge synthesis, in particular scoping reviews. Something really magical, I think, happened last spring. Two student-led initiatives by members of our lab created spin-off projects. One is the Nest, and Sophia will talk about that in a moment. And the other is the Climate Collective that Neb will talk about in a couple of moments. So this is a way in which our lab is trying to not only do programs, because our criteria, is it successful? But then the question is it scalable? How can we reach out to larger communities through partnerships? And then finally, is it sustainable? So our approach is, and by diversifying with these two student-led initiatives, you can see how we're expanding out. And this Venn diagram gives a good structural view of how the current lab looks. Next.
Okay, we are proud to say that the Wellness Impact Lab published the first ever academic review on climate cafes. The lead author on this was Andy de Jong, and this is a quote of hers recognizing that emotional wellness is vital for sustained climate engagement. I think we all feel that strongly here. Climate cafes offer a promising model, but the review indicated more formal research is needed. Next slide. Yes, these were the key findings of this scoping review. There was a gap in the academic literature on climate cafes, so the most of the information came from gray literature. Climate cafes, they were found to be flexible, community-led spaces, providing support, reducing isolation, building hope, solidarity. Participants reported feeling less alone and more empowered. There was an interesting debate in the literature and that was whether climate cafes should focus mainly on helping people talk about climate distress or also focus on motivating climate action. It was about a 50-50 split amongst the papers that were included. And of course, there are many challenges that remain. And I know there's active efforts to address some of these challenges, but what we found was limited access for marginalized groups, cultural and language barriers, logistical issues, and a lack of standardized evaluation, and the need for more research to build evidence, inform policy, and to further guide program delivery. Next slide.
So we began about 3 years ago running our initial climate cafes, and this is feedback from the evaluation from the 24-25 academic year. We ran 10 cafes. 6 were in person, 4 online, so we're getting good experience offering through both formats. Key findings, there's real awareness gap. Many, and in fact, most students haven't heard of climate cafes. So it shows there's a real lack of visibility and a need for outreach on campuses. We looked at who attends. We find the majority were international or transnational students or female identifying students. This points the need to specific groups who are more likely to engage in climate initiatives, but how to engage those who are not evident, in particular, missing in action are men. So this is part, and we'll learn in a few minutes about how we're trying to address that issue. Why are men missing in action? And the third is the impact, emotional impact, very positive. After attending, the students reported feeling more comfortable discussing climate action emotions and engaging in these conversations. And we had some real incredible testimonials, and I'll share 2 in a moment, just showing how coming together and talking in this safe community builds hope and validation of emotions. Next slide. So these are the voices, 2 student voices who attended cafes. It's rare to find a space where you can talk openly about emotional side of climate change without feeling judged or dismissed. What I love most is how supportive and open the conversations are, whether it's through sharing, listening to others, or just taking a moment to process everything. Susan and Harvey make the cafes incredibly warm and welcoming. If you're feeling overwhelmed by climate issues or just want to be part of a thoughtful community, I definitely recommend attending a cafe. And another voice, personally, the climate cafes have been a grounding experience, allowing me to engage in discussions that both validate the grief and the hope that comes from caring for our planet. Hearing others share their experiences has expanded my perspective, making me realize that the way we internalize climate concerns is deeply personal, yet universally felt. I truly appreciated the work being done to create and sustain these conversations. So now we're going to move and learn about the 2 particular projects that emerged beautifully from our lab last spring. And the first is the nest. Next slide. And Sophia, take over.
Thank you so much, Harvey. Okay, so through the climate cafes at the Wellness Impact Lab, we consistently heard from students how meaningful it was to have a space to name and to share these climate emotions. At the same time, many students also shared that they were looking for something more, something that they could do after these initial conversations. So spaces that didn't just support the emotional processing, but also reconnected them to a sense of agency and purpose. So the nest really emerged from these student perspectives. It is a Wellness Impact Lab sub-project, and it builds on the Climate Cafe model while extending it through student leadership, creative expression, and climate action. The nest was co-founded by Sarah Mergany and myself, growing directly out of our work as lab coordinators at the Wellness Impact Lab. And it is supported and funded by York University's Agents of Change program, which is a student-led, or sorry, which supports student-led projects connected to the UN Sustainable Development Goals and social determinants of health. And at its core, the Nest offers peer-led circles where students can explore climate emotions in a safe and supportive environment. Uh, this approach really captures our guiding phrase, which is grounding climate emotions, growing climate actions. And this reflects our belief that emotional well-being isn't separate from climate engagement, but it's actually foundational to it. Next slide. Okay, so this is what the Nest looks like in practice. Our work is, as I said, grounded in a peer-led approach where students facilitate what we call Nest circles. We also intentionally use creative methods. This can include art, storytelling, or dialogue as part of this process. This helps students express experiences that are sometimes difficult to put into words and supports resilience by engaging the group in both emotional and reflective ways of knowing. Over time, this approach has contributed to a sense of community impact, and students consistently describe feeling more connected not only to each other, but also to the idea of personal well-being in combination with climate action. And finally, we have begun to see opportunities to scale our work. The Nest initially started here at York University. However, now it is being adapted through partnerships with the University of Toronto, specifically Innis College. And this speaks to the flexibility and transferability of our model across campus context. Next slide. Thank you. So one of our main ways of reaching students is through social media, especially Instagram. And it is often how students first hear about the Nest and our events. So we have a lot of posts and reels on our Instagram page, but I wanted to show one in particular because it promotes a workshop that we hosted with a community partner. Her name is Annette DeBruel. Annette has over 20 years of experience supporting sustainability and climate change research and environmental organizations. In this workshop series, she facilitated an embodied practice using focusing, helping students tune in to how climate emotions show up in their body, listen to what these emotions are trying to communicate, and explore what kind of information we can take to inform more grounded and intentional forms of climate action. Collaborative events such as these are very central to how the Nest operates, since we often work with community partners to bring relational practices into our circles and help students connect with the broader community outside of the university. So this reel is just one example of how we use social media to share our work and to connect to students, or to connect students to these kinds of experiences. If we're able to play the reel, that would be wonderful.
Just push the advance next slide and it should go.
Yeah, I think here, 1 minute, I might have to just swap out how I'm sharing it. One moment. Because I'm sharing a PDF version actually right now because I didn't want to mess with the formatting. 1 moment. So our
We'll just talk a bit more about the Nest, Sophia, while we're waiting.
Yeah, of course. So I wanted to, oh,
Here we go.
okay, it seems like we have the reel up. Go ahead.
here we go. Sorry about that. So our deep dive workshop series is fantastic because it helps you listen to what is there inside of you and share it, but also find out what's there that you didn't know is there. We go through the doorway and into the body, and more will come. And our workshop series uses cards. We call them felt sense body cards. So our deep dive and our workshop series uses cards. We call them felt sense body cards. And here's an example of one.
And so we document what comes, our felt sensations, our emotions, thoughts can come, memories can come, and these can both be resources that help us come into a calm, grounded, heartfelt place. And they can also be memories that are tricky, that need attention, and we create a deep space for listening with presence, with care. And over time, what comes are action steps, ways of being different, doing different things, the energy to do that. And so it can really be a transformative experience to learn to listen to our bodies in this deeper way with the felt sense and Eugene Jennings' work of focusing.
Thank you. Okay, so this slide gives a little bit of more detail about what actually happens inside of a nest circle and the structure that guides the experience. So typically we begin with arrival and grounding, and this can include welcoming participants, reviewing community guidelines, and guiding a short grounding or mindfulness practice. The goal here is to really help participants settle into the space, regulate their nervous system, and make them feel calm. And this is really important when discussing emotionally complex topics like climate distress. From there, we'd like to move into a thematic reflection or kind of emotional processing. This usually involves guided prompts, story sharing, or reflective dialogue, specifically connected to the theme of that circle, such as climate grief, hope, or resilience. This stage really helps participants name and validate their emotional experiences and supports meaning making around those emotions. Next, we incorporate a creative or, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
No worries. Next, we incorporate a creative or embodied expression. So this might include art, writing, movement, or nature-based reflections. We intentionally include creative methods because they allow participants to express their emotions that can sometimes be difficult to articulate verbally in different experiential and sensory pathways. After that, we move into connection and collective insight. So participants are invited to share reflections, witness each other's experiences, and identify common themes that emerge within the group. This stage often strengthens feelings of belonging and can help reduce the sense of isolation that many students experience when thinking and talking about climate change. And finally, we close with action and integration. So this doesn't necessarily have to focus on productivity or pressure to act immediately. Instead, we like to invite participants to reflect on value aligning and sustainable ways that they might engage with climate action while also grounding them before leaving the space. So overall, we aim to reduce climate-related emotional distress, increase connection and belonging, strengthen adaptive coping and emotional literacy, and support sustainable and value-aligned engagement in climate wellness and climate action. Next. Okay, so to understand how these nest circles are actually landing for students, we evaluate them using pre and post event surveys. These surveys ask about emotional states, coping competence related to climate emotions, perceptions of community support and belonging, and motivation for climate action. So what you're seeing on this slide reflects preliminary findings from that evaluation work. And these are based on data collected across several nest circles. These results were pulled together by Sarah and myself into a poster presentations that we shared at a symposium at the University of Toronto this past October. Overall, we observed consistent emotional shifts. Students tended to move from feelings of overwhelm before the circle to feeling more concerned, but also hopeful and motivated afterwards. We also saw increases in coping confidence around climate emotions, stronger feelings of community support and belonging, and strong post-event ratings for connection to the circle's theme and motivation for action. So taken together, these findings suggest that collaborative peer-led dialogue, especially when paired with creative and reflective practices, can help students transform climate-related distress into emotional clarity and readiness for action. Next slide. So when we take a step back and look at these experiences, a few things really stand out about youth climate engagement. So first, I want to point out that emotional regulation appears to be a necessary foundation. When students have the space to process climate emotions and feel grounded, they're much more ready and able to engage thoughtfully rather than from a place of overwhelm. Second, peer validation and facilitation matter. Students consistently responded more positively in spaces that were led by peers where their emotions were normalized and shared rather than minimized or rushed. We also found that integrating emotional processing with creative expression and concrete pathways to action increased satisfaction and resonance. And finally, the fact that 96% of our participants said that they would recommend a nest circle to others speaks to the value that students are finding in these kinds of spaces. So together, these insights suggest that supporting youth climate engagement means attending to emotional well-being alongside action. And with that, I will hand things over to Neb, who will talk about how these ideas connect to the Climate Collective and broader community-based climate engagement. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you, Sophia, so much for those powerful words and as well as for the meaningful work that you're leading through the Nest as part of our incredible Wellness Impact Lab. Uh, Before I begin, I also want to acknowledge our dear friends and colleagues, Sandra and Lisa, who couldn't be here today, but whose insights, care, and contributions contribute to inform this work that we do. The next slide, please. Next slide, please. So I just want to build up on what's already been shared by talking about what it looks like when research actually gets put to work with young people. So the Climate Collective is a student-led club at York Hill campus, and it's really came out of paying attention to what students were telling us. Young people are not disconnected from climate crisis. In fact, a large global survey of young people aged 16 to 25 tells us that nearly 60% said that they were very or extremely worried about climate change, and almost half of that reported that these concerns affected their daily lives and functioning. So this shows that they are informed, they are paying attention, and they do care a lot. But at the same time, a lot of them are just unsure how to stay engaged without burning themselves out. And this is why this work exists to bring students together around that reality and to build a community where climate action, but as well as emotional resilience, can exist side by side. And at the heart of it is all connection about the Climate Collective, uh, which is when people feel alone in their concern, they pull back. But when they feel connected to others, asking the same questions, carrying that same sense of urgency, they stay in the work. And that's the kind of space that the Climate Collective is working very hard to create. Next slide, please. So here we just have a quick video that I want to show you guys that captures about the beautiful work that we're doing in action, which we'll just give it a second.
Sounds good. I'm just going to quickly switch sharing.
Good.
The Climate Collective, or TCC, at York University is dedicated to fostering community, well-being, and meaningful action in response to the climate crisis. TCC translates evidence into action through leadership initiatives and collaborative group discussions. One such initiative is the Gentlemen's Climate Cafe, or GCC, a research project originating from the Wellness Impact Lab, which seeks to understand why men are often underrepresented in climate action. TCC works closely with the Wellness Impact Lab by supporting the GCC through its cohorts and by co-hosting events with our partners. Most recently, the TCC collaborated on a climate cafe with the Equity Health Literacy Project, where we explored the intersection of digital literacy and climate change in today's rapidly evolving digital world. Thank you for your attention. We look forward to continuing the conversation with you.
That was our wonderful colleague, Lisa. Next slide, please. So as Harvey mentioned earlier, one of the things that we kept on noticing was that men were often described as missing from these climate conversations, and that didn't really feel sit right with us. So instead of asking why men don't care, we asked what might be getting in their way. And what we found is that a lot of men actually do care deeply about climate change, but they don't always have space where they feel comfortable talking about the fear of responsibility or uncertainty that comes with it. And that's where the Gentleman's Climate Cafe grew out of that realization, where it's not about debate or convincing anyone of anything, but it's actually just simply a space to talk, to listen, and to reflect. And what we have seen is that when people are given these rooms to process an issue honestly, they don't disengage. They actually lean in and they stay. Okay, next slide, please. So when we started the GCC, we wanted to carefully assess things and not just rush into conclusions. So we paid attention to what our community were actually telling us. And across 27 participants so far, what we have seen has been remarkably consistent. Over 93% shared that the space helped them talk openly about climate-related emotions that they rarely discuss anywhere else. And almost that same number said that it gave them a greater motivation and confidence to stay engaged, whether in climate work or community action. And again, more than 93% described the Gentleman's Climate Cafe as more welcoming and psychologically safe than other climate or academic space that they have been a part of. But what really brings those numbers to life are the words that people use themselves. One student, as we can see on the slide, shared that the climate change stopped feeling abstract and started feeling human, and that talking through these emotions made them feel more grounded or more willing to stay involved. And another student talked about how rare it was to be in these climate spaces without pressure to perform or to have all the right answers, and how that made the conversations more honest and meaningful. And for us at the GCC, that is the whole point, right? The numbers, of course, do matter, but what matters more is what they're pointing to. And when people feel safe enough to be real, they don't disengage, they stay, they reflect, and they actually move forward with intentions. And what has been encouraging to see in this work is how this work has been growing beyond just one space. We have had the privilege of partnering up with amazing groups like Toronto Zoo, Green Speakers, the Equity Health Literacy Project, the Kindness Loop, which has helped ground this work in both community and real world engagement. At the same time, though, the TCC has began taking roots on other campuses, including a UFT, Humber College, and conversations are being held right now to host at Western as well. And when we opened our membership, we received over 90 applications. And it was not because we were pushing it hard, but because students were actively looking for space like this. And for us, these are not just addition to another accomplishments list. They are a sign that this kind of approach that the TCC, GCC, but as well as just the whole lab taking is resonating with our students, youth, and community as a whole. And so when we talk about long-term goals, I usually come back to these three simple ideas, which the first idea is community hub, creating a space where students can actually talk about climate change honestly, not just about the facts or policies, but how they're actually feeling, what they're worried about, and what they don't have answers to yet. And a space where people, youth especially, don't feel rushed or judged for saying the wrong things. The second is social impact. This work is not meant to stay contained in one room or one group. It is about being part of a broader community, building connections that last, and staying present in the conversation over time, not just when things are convenient. And the third and most importantly is sustainability. We want this to be something that stays at York University and broader for a very long time. Something that future students and youth can actually step into it, shape, and carry it forward in their own way. And we are clear-eyed about where we are. And we know that we can't undo all the damages that has already happened, but we still have agency over what comes next. And that understanding is what shapes our work here at the lab. And the decision that we make now carry consequences beyond the present moment. And that raises a simple question for all of us, which is what kind of future are we helping carrying forward? Or as the quote beautifully puts it, we don't inherit this world from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children. Thank you so much. And I'll pass it back to Harvey.
Actually, Susan.
Oh, Susan, sorry.
Unmute, Susan.
I just said, wow. Uh, Thank you so much, Sophia and Neb. You know, you can see the kind of vibrant, beautiful, brilliant students that we're so fortunate to work with, and the energy that is there, and the desire to be engaged, and the creativity that's possible. So, lessons learned from running climate cafes. Well, you can see that Sophia and the TCC team have taken their own lessons and implemented their own ideas, which are wonderful. Can we go to the next slide, please? One of the things that we've been identifying at Will is that we seem to need to be specific about particular populations. One climate cafe does not fit everybody. Next slide, please. And here are three that we have been working with. You've already heard about the Gentleman's Cafe. The one that I want to talk about is what we are calling the World Cafe, Conversations on Climate Change and Belonging. It was mentioned earlier that we noticed that we had a lot of international students attending our cafes, and what we found over time is that there were many students. York, of course, is a particular community with, as Harvey had mentioned, tremendous diversity, and people from all over the world come to York, and also are, you know, many are coming from families who have immigrated to the GTA area as well. So there is a strong transnational experience for many uh, young people who are engaging or impacted by climate change. They've also been impacted by what's happened in the countries around the world that they're very attached to, through birth, through family, through culture, etc. So, with a couple of people, one, Sarah Merhani, who co-founded the Nest with Sophia, and another one of our community fellows, Sarah Farwadi. Both these women have this experience of being extremely impacted by climate devastation in another country. And so they've taken the lead in organizing this and facilitating it. There we go. Any more questions people have at the end, I'd be happy to answer those.
Great. And you notice we have run an intergenerational cafe, and we can talk about the real power of having. We did this in partnership with our retirement association at York. I mean, with youth. Next slide. So, lots of lessons learned, and I think you'll see from our presentation the power of partnering. If we just stay within our little lab ourselves on campus, we won't be able to take things to scale. We won't be able to sustain them. So we're forming partnerships with various groups on campus. We're partnering, for example, with our faculty of environmental urban change and running cafes, and we're growing community partners as well as with other universities. And that's part of our main excitement of having this presentation today with the national organization, with your association. We want to help build ultimate collective efforts. So partnerships are crucial. So we have we only have about 9 minutes left. We can open a little bit for some question discussion, but we will sort of end at 3, and I'll do a brief grounding. But Susan, Neb, and Sophia are willing to stay on after 3 o'clock Takaranto time to answer questions. But maybe if we just open it up for about, maybe we can take 3 questions.
Yeah, thank you all so much for the incredible presentation and all the work that your leadership and work that you're doing to apply this. Yeah, if folks have questions, I know there are a couple questions in the chat we can draw from, but if you have questions, if you want to put up your hand, I will allow switch it so people can unmute themselves if you would like to ask a question live as well.
Am I audible?
We can hear
Sorry,
you.
my name is I'm joining from India, and I'm currently a PhD scholar, and I'm looking to build a climate literacy module for young adults in heat stress communities here in India. So one question I had is because I'm currently looking into multimodality interventions, right? So here in India, there's not a lot of awareness as such, because I see climate cafes cropping up here and there, but then it invariably, in my experience at least, has only seemingly worked out in communities where there is certain level of awareness that climate change is so and so, and this is how it affects us. So there's some level of awareness that is almost a prerequisite for climate cafes to um, take action. So I'm just wondering how you would recommend, starting out in terms of both awareness and bringing in conversations, bringing about conversations through climate cafes. Do you think the awareness and knowledge sharing can happen as part of a cafe, or is it seen more of a relief mechanism at this point? Because just to give some context, a lot of urban communities here there are venues for them to learn from. But then if you look at if you look at rural communities where the impact is more direct, there's not a lot of work being done there. So I'm just wondering if there's any input for that.
Maybe I'll start. Our title is Looking into the Fire. And our experience, it's not so much awareness, it's people's unease, fear, worry about wanting to get engaged and what can I do anyway, the feeling of being overwhelmed. So we find if we can find safe spaces and to begin a conversation, and that is a powerful way. Many people, they're seeing what's going on, but they don't want to see it. They don't know what they can do. It's too scary, and I'm too busy right now just coping with my day-to-day activities. So I don't know if Deb or Sophie, one of you want to give your sense from a student.
Well, at least from my perspective, uh, running climate cafes at the Wellness Impact Lab and then nest circles at the Nest, I find that these sorts of gatherings attract a certain type of people. So it's people who already have a strong connection to the earth and to the climate. And in our experience, since we're working in a university setting, I guess it's a limitation, but there is a lot of people who are already educated about climate change impacts that come. Not everybody, of course, but a lot. And so I feel like in our circumstance, it might not, I don't find that much trouble in engaging people and bringing awareness to the topic of climate change because I feel like most people know about it. However, in terms of engagement for populations that might not, I think that particularly with students and with youth, resonating to things that they care about. So, for example, for a population that is experiencing extreme heat, really tuning into that and the impacts of extreme heat on mental health and using that as a target for education and for people to take action, I think.
So maybe I'll take one more question before we end our hour.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Yes.
I am grateful for this knowledge exchange. I wanted to hit on the last point of partnerships. How would the partnerships work with your organizations? I have a lot more questions, hoping to connect later, but just wondering that first.
Um, do you want to take a stab at that, Susan or Neb? There's a number of ways in which they can work, but you need to have a common, kind of like a common person, a common goal. And
So we're operating largely in a university setting. So collaborating with the Department of Urban Environmental Change, for instance, has been a very useful one for us. And to the previous question, the way they set that up was that they had one of their faculty give a short overview on climate change, the science of climate change. And then we moved into a climate cafe. I thought that worked very effectively, actually, and was a good way to give a kind of climate 101, along with the opportunity then to process what came up with that. But we have also partnered with people from the community, and both TCC and the Nest have been extremely effective at doing that. So maybe Neb, you want to say something about some community partners?
Yeah, no, for sure. So, the main goal here is to build the community around what we're doing. So, especially with the GCC, what we have been able to do very effectively is, since there's a huge stigma in that section around young men, what we have been trying to do is leverage that and form a partnerships with a community groups. For example, the mentorship groups, Brothers for Brothers is one that we are partnering up with other universities. Um, so there's so many pathways that we could go about it. And reason for that is because this important issue intersects with so many other part of our lives and communities and so many other issues. So when we look at it in a partnership, it's not just this one sense pathway, but the intersection is so broad, very broad.
I can share more of what I do if you don't mind. Um, I'm working at responsible cafes. I'm the founder, and going to local cafes and asking them to implement a small discount if you bring your own reusable cup. So we're already making partnerships with cafes in the local area, and I'm wondering if we can have events like climate cafes at the cafes that we partner with. I will contact you for sure.
I just put my email address into the chat. Yeah, please connect with us after. Yeah, we look for some existing organizations where we can come in and we can add value. So maybe they may provide the if we just had open cafes, we found it's kind of variable. Sure. So we find if we partner, for example, undergraduate, psychology student association, there's 4,500 members in, or the undergraduate global health, or we partner with our sustainability office here at York, or with Neb and Sophia, we're partnering with community organizations. Neb himself has started several community organizations. So we come in, and so they have an intact group. So we come in and we provide sort of the content to facilitate a sort of joint cafe. So it's finding building on these kind of partnerships. And the advantage is it's low cost. Like we don't need a huge grant to go out. We want to find something that's sustainable. I mean, our budget in our lab is minuscule. We don't have mega grants. And so we do it by finding basically a common purpose and how essentially it's through this partnership model. And then how can you expand out the partnerships through, we're building networks of cooperation. Okay. We've come to the sort of end of the forum. Maybe if I can just take 60 seconds and we'll kind of formally end, and then we're quite happy to stay on for more for questions. So as I say, healing ourselves is vital for healing others, healing the planet. So we always end our meetings because sometimes, particularly cafes, they can get into some really deep emotional depth and concerns, and just to help people, kind of be able to have balance in that sort of at the end. So sit at the front of your chair and we'll just do a couple of very simple Qigong moves. The first one is shaking. I see animals will do this. You'll see athletes before the start of a race and nervous, will just shake. So just bounce, shake. And you put your hands up if you want. And you may want to make the heart sound. Maybe we'll do that 3 times and just sort of let go of any sort of strong emotion. So heart sound is ha. Okay. Ha, ha, ha. Letting go, letting go, letting go. So if you just take one hand and just bring it up in front of you and let it come down. And I'll swing up the other arm. And this is balancing. It's called centering. So you're just taking any of the energies or things that bother you and just become grounded and centered. Do one more time. And then we end our sessions really embodying of our vision. So may you be well, may you be happy. May all beings be well, may all beings be happy, and may we truly love our planet. Namaste. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to apologize for the PowerPoint technology glitch, but we we rolled with it. So thanks for accommodating that. And I really want to thank particularly Sophia and Neb, marvelous, as the student said, but we're just so privileged to be able to work with such amazing young leaders. And that's the future. It is is basically providing really some space, a bit of encouragement, and they just fly. so, so, so we're quite willing to stay on for questions, and I pop my email in the chat, but do look us up. Look up the our website, the Wellness Center, our Will website, and also the websites for the Nest and the Climate Collective, TCC. Yeah. In Toronto, I don't want to say TTC. That's a Toronto Transit Commission. It's anyway. Any sort of more questions or discussion?
Thank you so much. That was incredible presentation, and really appreciate the framing of grounding, connecting with community and one another and all this. And yeah, really appreciate your time and everything too, and willingness to answer more questions. Yeah, if anyone wants to jump in, I know there are a couple questions in the chat as well, actually, if you have if you're willing to share. I think one of them was around the poly crisis and how in someone else's experience, the like topics of like war, immigration challenges, all the things happening in the world, polycrisis come up, and wondering how those are being woven into your cafes, which I think it reminds me a little bit of what Neb was saying about some of the partnerships and things coming together in that right way and intersections with these. So I don't know if there's anything more that any of you want to share on that, but I know that was a question in the chat.
I'll say a couple of things and open it up. I mean, first of all, acknowledge we have polycrises, and they're affecting each one of us in different ways, and some of them are affecting like just short-term affordability. I mean, so so we have to recognize that's the reality. But I think it was Catherine Hayhoe had this wonderful sort of visual, though. All these polycrises, you put them in a bucket, but there's a hole in the bucket at the bottom, and that's climate change. Because a lot of polycrises are kind of here, and now, the economic, political, but meanwhile, the planet is warming and warming, right? And if we don't ultimately address that warming, then all the other, basically, the sense of all melt away is going to all fall through the hole in the bucket. But I'm interested in what others on our team have to say. It's a great question and something that we live with.
I feel like, especially for students, this comes up a lot. As Harvey and Susan alluded to already, York has a very, very large population of transnational and international students. And I feel like the World Cafe, the specific subtype of climate cafe that we talk about, since it attracts the international and transnational students who specifically, a lot of them resonate and have family that are facing both climate change and things like war. I think that it's a really good space for them to connect with other people. And I was hoping even Susan could add into that since she has a lot of experience with that specific cafe.
Thanks, Sophia. Yes, that's absolutely right. In the World Cafes, these issues come up, uh, and people are, talking about countries and environments that are impacted simultaneously by war and uh, and climate change. But I think that the for many of these subjects, the issues are the same in a way that it's about how do we create a culture of care? How do we begin to make spaces where people can talk honestly about the kind of world they want to live in? Uh, there's so much that we know in this work that needs to change. Our economic system is broken and is destroying our Earth, and our political system can't get it together to address what's going on. And the billionaires are devouring the planet. It's that so many of these issues are all interconnected, but so are the solutions coming together in caring community, and creating different ways of being with each other. I don't know if that's helpful. Neb, do you have any thoughts?
No, you guys said it perfectly. Very, very perfectly.
Yeah. So, is there other questions in the chat, Kaylee, or if anyone else has a question?
Yeah, thank you all so much. Yeah, and I think there is maybe kind of one other question that kind of ties together. I think there's some folks are asking a little bit more to hear about some of kind of the, I guess, almost like logistics or kind of what goes into like how long are the cafes, how you went about maybe recruitment, especially bringing in people who maybe aren't as engaged usually like with the Gentleman's Cafe, or even what this might look like, what if you have any key learnings, I guess, to share kind of from your process about what kind of training or capacity building goes into maybe preparing students or youth leaders to building similar cafes at other schools or universities. Sorry, that's kind of a lot all in one, but I'm kind of noticing that theme in some of the questions in the chat if you're willing. And then I know we're coming up on time or have gone over time now. So just really appreciate your willingness to share your insights and learning and experiences.
So we could write a book on that. So why don't you, what would you put into one chapter, Sophie? First of all, with the nest, just what's the typical length and the sense of how you recruit, and
Yes, so for nest circles, the usual length is 90 minutes. However, for the other events that we do, such as workshop series, this can the length can change depending on the kind of event. But for the nest circles, they're usually 90 minutes. Um, Sorry, do you mind just repeating the second half of the question?
Yeah, I think folks were just asking about kind of recruitment and then just what kind of like capacity training, like what any key learnings, I guess, about how maybe this could be like replicated maybe at other communities or schools. Yeah, it's the most recent one in the chat there. So
Okay, thank you so much. So in terms of clear learnings, we definitely have a lot, but for us specifically, we were grateful to be supported and funded by this organization called the Agents of Change at York University. whenever I talk to other students about creating spaces like this on their own, like different campuses, I always say universities tend to have organizations, funding for student-led initiatives. Sometimes they have different categories, but they usually do, and they usually go through like a yearly application or a bi-yearly application cycle. And so these are really, really great because they don't only support in terms of funding, they also bring mentorship. So I think that specifically for the Nest, it really helped us because we were mentored not only by Harvey and Susan, but also through people who are very familiar in leading student-led spaces. So taking advantage of these university resources, I think, is great. Also, I would say, passion alone doesn't only scale. That's a really big lesson that we learned. Passion definitely starts initiatives, and it started the Nest, but a big lesson is that growth requires systems, sustainability, and not just energy. And so we've really learned how to sustain the Nest instead of just like grow, grow, grow and get overwhelmed. Because especially as students, burnout is very likely to happen if you want to do something like that. So that's why we tend to lean on partners, we tend to lean on the institution, your university, just to help our sustainability and help prevent burnout. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
So Neb, what's our strategy for engaging men? And I'll
Yeah.
just preface that you begin by getting one or two really powerful leaders. To me, it starts and it ends with leadership. And you can see in front of you with Neb and Sophia, two amazing student leaders, and they are there. So how do you get those leaders and sort of engaged? But so how are you engaging men, Neb?
Yeah, so I mean, for the GCC, I mean, this is a sector that I have a lot of experience on because as well as outside of the lab, we do host a mentorship focused on young men's mental health. And so when we first started, there's this belief, which again, stigma, that we think, that whether it's mental health or climate change in a whole, that we think men don't care and stuff like that. But we'll be very surprised how not unique this challenge is. And a lot of young men do actually care, but they're just not that safe space to actually come out. That's what we also experienced with our mentorship program when we first started in cohort 1 in 2023. We were so scared that if man was even going to show up, and we just thought it was going to be an empty thing. But now it has been 2 years, and we have finished four cohorts, and we have engaged over 80 men around Toronto City. And it was also similar to the GCC, which was, I mean, it starts with a word of mouth, of course. When we talk about, for example, a lot of folks from a university or friends, when we mention it, for example, when I mentioned it with one of my very good friend, Braden, which is now very involved in our GCC group, um, I thought maybe he was going to be like, oh, this is not for me. And he was like, oh my God, what? This exists and I'll be there. And he has been a very involved member of our GCC. So what actually takes and what we have been seeing in our GCC is just taking that step and just telling your friends, telling your guy friends, and building that community, that safety around there, saying that it is okay. And your identity as a man doesn't get diminished because you care about these important social issues that exist, whether it's mental health or climate change.
You know, and just a couple key learning. It helps we learn open calls. You get what it's really so important to partner with existing organizations like the Undergraduate Global Health Student Association, co-host, and let them, help to mobilize, right? Or to partner with another faculty or partner with a community organization. The other is to be mindful, like we're learning, we're going to put under our calendars within academic term, what are green days where students are more likely to be available? What are red days, like when we get an exam season toward the end, they're burned out or they get, so it's figuring out, the timing and then the other is multifaceted, like we do tabling, we do social media, we've started going into classes, we're trying different approaches. Each one has some value, but it really helps if you can partner with some existing organization, have a common goal, and then you can sort of they'll have an infrastructure because I say our lab is very, we don't have mega grants, so we have to do this basically on a shoestring. But the good news about that is if we're dependent on getting, huge grants from government or that, then the grants always end. And what do you do? So we want to design programs that will be sustainable and scalable that can really run on existing groups and very amount of sort of basically everybody, it's stone soup. Everybody's putting a stone into the soup in the village, right? And we're creating this together. Maybe we'll take one more question if there's one someone wants to raise. Or Susan, do you want to make a comment on what we've learned? And we're still working, honestly, we had a meeting last night with our exec group and going over this very question, what do we do to ensure we're going to have sufficient numbers showing up? Because we've had experiences where nobody shows up. And so what are your learnings, Susan, as my co-partner here?
Okay. I mean, I've been, thinking and we've been talking about, what are the ways to embed this in the university environment. There are programs at the University of California where there are a course that you can take that teaches you about climate distress, Climate 101. You learn mindfulness as a strategy to help manage, and you get involved in a climate action. And that's offered through the university at their 10 campuses of the University of California. I'm very impressed by that because it gives students a reason to go, oh, it's a course. I actually get a credit for that and an incredible experience. So I think we, have to think about how can we embed these programs so that they, can spread and grow. The student initiatives are incredible, and of course, there needs to be some kind of mentoring of that to continue because Sophia will move on eventually. Neb will move on. And then, who's, yeah, and so us too, most definitely. Who's going to carry the torch, so to speak?
So one question asked, I saw, could cafes be embedded in, of course? Well, yeah, easily. If we were doing because even the California course is also co-taught by practitioners, so so it includes a major sort of practice component. So certainly in a course you could, conduct a climate cafe and then get self-evaluation sort of from that. The other thing is the advantage of being on a university is students will be attracted to the lab because they're interested in getting letters of reference and they want to get experience, but at a practical level, can I get a letter? Can I do an independent study and get course credit? Sophia is doing a project for honors undergraduate thesis. The scoping review that Andy did, the first one, on climate cafes, she was completing her Master of Public Health degree and did a 4-month practicum with us. And we said, Andy, what do we know about climate cafes? Let's get into the literature. We found back then by 2024, there was no academic study. It was all gray literature. So and the gray literature is very dispersed. How do you actually organize that? So we got great help from a librarian and we've built a lot of expertise because when things are happening, you'll see them first in the great literature, in the blogs and websites. Academic publications are really 5 years later on. So if you want to find what's really happening today, so we develop that expertise. But if you can provide students with, be able to build it so they can get academic credit. For some workshop we've done, we'll give a certificate so they can put a certificate on their resumes. Those are things that that can give students something very tangible for, engaging, in quotes labs such as ours. Anyway, we should probably wrap up, but maybe we should just go around with the four of us and just sort of give a final reflection or comment. So do you want to start, Sophia? Your final word, reflection.
Sure. I'm just so grateful to have
How
the
you,
opportunity.
in one word, how you're feeling.
Oh, in one word. Okay. Um, I'm feeling, oh wow, this is hard. I'm feeling excited.
And a reflection.
A reflection is just I'm so happy that we have a space to talk to like-minded people. And I hope that everybody enjoyed the panel. And yeah, if you're interested in anything that we've said, please reach out to Harvey. If you're interested in collaborating with the Nest or with the TCC, please reach out to Neb or myself.
Okay. Neb, what's your one word, how you're feeling and your reflection?
I'm feeling very, very optimistic, you know. Of course, when we look around the world right now, there's a lot of challenges. But I'm also very optimistic that, it is one thing to hear this problem, and I know in our heart, each of us have a change that we do want to see. But now it's our responsibility when we have about this call to actually act on it and to carry that change forward from this conversation that we had. So we are rooting for you guys, and we look forward to see what you guys would do in this space, but as well as in the broader community. Thank you.
And my co-partner in life in the lab, Susan.
And I think I'm just going to reiterate what's been said. It's great to be with like-minded people, as Sophia said, and to know that people here are doing great work in this space as well. And it's been an honor to be able to spend the later years of my life working with, you know, with all this wonderful creative energy. I feel very proud of Sophia and Neb and everyone else, all the other students that are in our lab. They're amazing.
And I'm feeling immense gratitude in all dimensions. And it's been, I think, a very affirming experience today, and an opportunity to share and to realize that we're not alone, because we build this by reaching out, making these connections. So hopefully we've made connections here online, and we can continue to build this global lattice work of positive change for addressing our climate. So I would just say, everybody, namaste. Thank you.
Thank you all so very, very much. Really appreciate your time, leadership, and all the work you're doing on this. And thanks so much for being here with us today. Much gratitude to you all. Thank you.